Hola, 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 hola. Hoy voy a estar reproduciendo el primer podcast de The Last of Us, el podcast oficial, donde el anfitrión es Christian Spicer. Y va a recorrer verano parte 1 de The Last of Us con el escritor y director creativo Neil Druckmann, Troy Baker, Ashley Johnson y el diseñador de combate y cuerpo a cuerpo Anthony Newman. Esto dura 1 horita. Para quien quiera verlo con subtítulos en español, después vaya a mi canal. Ahí activan el subtítulo automático y mínimamente ahí van a tener un subtítulo en castellano. Quien quiera simplemente escucharlo, ahí tiene el QR para escanear, o el link abajo a la derecha para también ir a una transcripción del episodio que está en la página. Mientras tanto, también voy a ir chusmeando para que sea un poquito más dinámico. Voy a ir mostrando los extras que tiene el juego, viendo los diseños de personajes, la galería de los modelos de los personajes, cositas ricas, como diría el amigo de Cultura de lo Absurdo.
I'm here, baby. I'm here. Come, give me your hand. What is it?
My leg hurts.
How bad?
Pretty bad.
You're gonna need to run. Now hold on tight. Joe, watch out! Keep your eyes closed, honey. This way, through the alley. Get to the highway. Go! You got Sarah. I can outrun him. I will meet you there.
Acá en la cronología principal del podcast se muestra en esta escena todo el inicio del juego. Ya a partir del minuto 4 empieza el podcast. También estoy haciendo esto a falta de estar arrancando el 2. Pero pronto le daré ese juego. Primero quiero terminar lo que tengo pendiente aquí en Twitch.
We're gonna get you to safety and go back for him, okay?
Sir, there's a little girl. But... Yes, sir.
Shit. Oh, no. Sarah. Move your hands, babe. I know, baby. I know it hurts. Come on, baby. Please. I know, baby. I know. Sarah. Baby. Don't do it.
I'm Christian Spicer. I'm a writer, podcaster, and a huge fan of The Last of Us. And this game means a lot to me, like I'm sure it does to you. And while playing it for the first time back in 2013, I became a dad to a little girl named Estelle, my first child. We nicknamed her Ellie before the game came out, before I knew anything about it. And there I am playing the game late at night, playing through the devastating prologue we just heard. My daughter, Ellie, literally sleeping on my lap. And I witnessed the moment when Sarah dies in Joel's arms. A father holding his daughter as she passes. And from there, the story doesn't let up. This game connected with me on such a human and emotional level. And even though I've replayed it many times, that first playthrough, it sticks with me to this day. Welcome to the official The Last of Us podcast. What you just heard was the gut punch of a prologue for The Last of Us Part 1. a masterpiece of a game that came out in 2013, developed by Naughty Dog and published by Sony PlayStation. And while Naughty Dog is getting ready to launch The Last of Us Part 2, I wanted to take the time now to revisit this video game that means so much to so many of us, and I wanted to crawl into the minds of the visionaries and talents who created this groundbreaking work.
Saluditos, Anja Sensual.
We'll be recapping the story while also diving deep into the making of. In this episode, we'll be covering the prologue and Summer Part 1, and I'll be talking with Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson, also known as Joel and Ellie, and melee and combat designer Anthony Newman, and the writer and creative director of The Last of Us, Neil Druckmann. And since I'm still recovering from that prologue, it seems only fair to start our conversations with the mastermind behind it all, Mr. Neil Druckmann. So jumping into the prologue for The Last of Us Part 1, the player starts the game as Sarah. And so immediately we're playing as a character who isn't the typical video game protagonist, right?
Yes, a lot of those decisions came out of wanting to do something fresh, and then we ended up with all these extra wins that we didn't necessarily plan for. So initially the opening was you played as Joel, and you would go over your neighbor's house and see your neighbor get infected and have to do your first kill there as Joel, then come back to your house and get Sarah and be on your way. But the more we thought about it, it's like, one, it felt like, okay, I've kind of seen that before, you know. So I was like, how do we make this interesting? And then in one of our brainstorms got the idea like, well, what if you saw everything through Sarah's eyes? And that became exciting because you're playing a much more innocent, not as capable person. So you feel the fear of the world kind of falling apart around you.
What is going on?
And you feel more helpless.
Dad?
We have very limited time with Sarah, and we need to establish this character and create all this empathy because she is the reason why Joel ends up the way he is when we're jumping into the future. And it was a nice foreshadowing of where the story is ultimately going when you play as Ellie. Kind of like you're playing these two daughters that this guy ends up having.
And we get to see this nice little scene of what Joel and Sarah's normal is, with Sarah asleep on the couch, waiting for her father.
We'll talk about it in the morning. All right, good night.
Hey,
Scoot.
Monday at work, huh? Here,
What's this?
your birthday? You kept complaining about your broken watch. So I figured, you know. You like it?
Honey, it's
What?
nice, but I think it's stuck. It's not...
What? No. Oh, ha ha.
Where did you get the money for this?
Drugs. I sell hardcore drugs.
Oh, good. You started helping out with the mortgage then.
Yeah, you wish.
It's interesting when you put it that way. It makes me think about the structure of The Last of Us, which is each chapter is kind of its own story. So you have to establish with each story, okay, what is the day-to-day like? And then what's the event that happened that throws these characters off their path, and how are they struggling to get kind of back to normal? And we came up with this idea of this sweet moment that his daughter has saved up money. And, you know, we get the sense that maybe they don't have that much money, so it's a big deal for her. And she remembered his birthday, and she's staying up excited to give him this gift just so she could see his reaction. As far as I remember, the watch actually came from the concept art. Hyung Nam was our concept artist who did all the character designs. And there was just a drawing of a watch on Joel's wrist. And it seemed kind of interesting. And then in brainstorming his backstory, I was like, okay, what if he's carrying the watch that his dead daughter gave him? And that's kind of this constant reminder. And, you know, in cinematic storytelling, you're always looking for ways to visualize feelings. So people don't have to, Joel doesn't have to constantly say, hey, remember Sarah, my daughter that died 20 years ago? Like, instead, all he's got to do is touch his watch. And as a player, you right away, that becomes a symbol for this relationship. And then to go from that to now you're seeing this other aspect of, and again, so much of this game is about parenthood and this relationship between a child and their parent and vice versa, that you go from this playfulness, this intimacy to this protectiveness of, okay, now we got to make harder and harder decisions to protect the ones we love. And it was important to kind of encapsulate almost the entire story and who Joel is. Really doesn't change that much. Like this story is not about Joel changing. This is about Joel returning to who he is truly is over the course of the game. So you get to see the full spectrum of who this person is in the opening, and then we kind of hit a reset for him before we come back to it.
And then very soon after this sweet moment of Sarah giving Joel his birthday gift, his watch, we see Joel in another role, and it's as the role of protector when the neighbor comes over, and Joel. Without hesitation, he kills the neighbor.
Yeah, so I know the backstory is that he heard some screaming from the neighbor's house, and he went over to see what's going on. And this is what I find to be great storytelling, is that you're given just enough information that you could put the pieces together yourself. So when Joel rushes back in, he already has blood on him. Something has already gone down that has freaked him out.
There you are.
And he's just concerned about the safety of his daughter.
Sarah, are you okay? Anyone come in here? Don't go near the door. Stand back there.
Then he goes in the drawer and takes out a gun. So now you just say, okay, Joel is someone that owns a gun and is not afraid to just load it up and hold it in his hand right away. Again, telling you something about him. And then when a neighbor crashes through the window, he's trying to...
Jimmy, just stay back!
He's pleading with his neighbor to stop.
I am warning you!
And only once a neighbor charges at him and really his daughter does Joel pull the trigger. And you're right, without hesitation. As soon as he feels like his daughter is threatened, he's not afraid to pull the trigger. That's who he is, and that's who he is like throughout the story.
Yeah, and then when they leave the house, they're in the car, and we see another, I think, great example of who Joel is in this moment and who he is as a father, where he makes the difficult decision to leave others behind and press on.
Who do you think you're doing? Keep driving.
I got a kid, Joel.
So do we.
But we have room.
Hey!
Keep driving,
stop!
Tommy.
Stop!
You ain't seen what I seen. Someone else will come along.
You should have helped him.
It's funny you say the hard decision, and I think about Joel, and for him, it's not a hard decision. It's a no decision. Like, I'm not going to stop to do anything that'll put my daughter at risk. And if I go on a tangent real quick, I'm originally from Israel, so I follow a lot of Israeli politics. And there was this guy, Gilad Shalit, a soldier who was kidnapped and held prisoner for years by Hamas. And then there was an exchange of hundreds of prisoners for this one soldier. And some of the prisoners that were exchanged had blood on their hands, like committed horrible terrorist acts. And there was a big debate in Israel, was it right to like exchange so many people that were in prison for this one soldier to bring him back? And I remember I talked with my dad about it, and I'm like, what do you think? Do you think that was the right decision? And he says, are you asking me as like the soldier's dad or as the prime minister of Israel? Because that would make two very different decisions. As the prime minister of Israel, I think they made the wrong decision. I think they're now less safe because they made this thing. As the guy's dad, I would have traded every prisoner in every like prison for this guy. And that's really what the story is about. Do the ends justify the means? And it's really so much about perspective. If it was maybe to save a strange kid versus a family, maybe Joel would have made a very different decision. But when it was like his tribe, his daughter, there was no question about what he's going to do.
Right. So you mentioned Joel's tribe. I'm curious, when does Joel let people in? When is he willing to sacrifice for them versus, just keep driving and don't look back?
Well, I mean, you always like, I think this is like a Robert McKee thing. I'm sure it has older history. Robert McKee is like a famous kind of storytelling guru, that someone I kind of really studied when I was learning how to write. But there's this concept of, for characters, the worst thing, like what's the worst thing that could happen to them? A fate worse than death. And Joel experiences that in the very opening.
Oh, no. Sarah?
Nothing could be worse for him. This is like the worst fate as his daughter dies in his arms. So Joel's, who he is, his decisions have led him to hell, essentially. So he tries to fight his nature and to say, okay, well, if that's what has led me here, whether it's conscious or subconscious, I'm going to do everything I can to not get attached like this, because this is the consequences of loving someone in this world.
were you already a father when that decision was made?
I became a parent while working on The Last of Us. And this was one of the last things we did, was this sequence, the opening of the game. I don't know if I acted that differently or reacted to the material that differently after having a kid, because I just tapped so much. My parents were very protective as when I was a kid, and I could just tap into those feelings and those fears and what they did to try to protect me and my brother. That then once I had my own kid, it just felt a continuation, or maybe more intense versions of the same feelings. That's why I try, when people ask me, like, what's it like being a parent? Like, you feel new stuff. I'm like, I don't know if you feel new stuff. It's just you feel a love like you've never felt before. You feel a fear like you've never felt before. It's just everything is much more intense. I could have never known such intense feelings before. And so I'm sure, like, once we were shooting that scene, it hit on a more personal level, but we were always going down that path anyways. It's interesting because on one hand, when you're trying to direct actors, at least that's the way I do it, I'm trying to be an observer as if I'm a player playing the game, and I'm trying to feel it like as if I'm seeing it for the first time. And then there's a part of the director being very critical, and it's like, okay, what are we after? Are we achieving the thing that we're after? And we're trying to get the scene, and Troy talks about this a lot.
So I knew this scene was coming from the very, very onset of the game because it was a foundational moment in the game. So
Hola Santi, saluditos. Espero que te esté yendo bien.
spend the next however long prepping and doing what I thought was a process for preparing for this role in this scene, specifically in this moment. And I knew cognitively and academically that what you needed to do as an actor was attach yourself to a very real moment that could best be a one-to-one analog for the moment you were trying to create. And so I did. What they don't teach you, or what I had not learned, rather, is that that is like sticking your mouth on the open end of a fire hydrant. And I hit the moment where I thought I was, ready, walked in, and it is right there at the service. So we go through this scene, and it's bang, and instantly the levee breaks. And I lose my shit. And all of a sudden, Joel is gone. There's no Joel in that scene. There's just Troy. And there's Troy having this huge cathartic moment. And I hear, cut. I'd like to go again. And I wasn't.
A quien estamos escuchando es a quien interpreta a Joel. Está recordando la parte en la que él se desmorona en la escena en la que tiene que representar la muerte de su hija y se olvida completamente del personaje. Como que se metió tan en el papel que lo desgarrado que estaba en ese momento era simplemente él, no es que estaba interpretando a Joel. Y ahí cuando le dicen corten, vamos de nuevo.
Prepared for it. I went, wait, what? So we go again. And now I'm forcing that moment, and it's not anywhere. It doesn't feel genuine at all. And I start crying again, cut. I'd like to go again. And we do this 5, 6, 7 takes. And finally, Neil says, okay, I think we've got it. And we all leave. I was exhausted. Then a month later, we're shooting again. And I'm outside, and Neil goes, so hey, next shoot, we're gonna do this scene. I was like, oh, cool. And he goes, and we also need to reshoot a scene. I was like, oh, which one? And he goes, and I went, dude, don't do this to me. And now I'm mad. And so a month later, we come back and we start shooting the scene, action, and I go straight into it, and it feels weird and it feels false. And we do it 3 or 4 times, and Neil walks up to me in between takes, and I'll never forget this. And he says, I'm picking up on some resistance. And I said, yeah, you're damn right you're picking up on some resistance, because we've got it. It's in the can. It was take 1. And he said, let me tell you what I have. I have a man broken. And I was like, yeah, his fucking daughter just died. He goes, no, I have a man broken. What I don't have is what's happening. This is happening. I can fix it. It's not working. She's going. She's gone. I'm broken. And that is when I realized that Neil Druckmann was the greatest director I've ever worked with.
All right, the game now takes us forward in time. It's 20 years later, we're in Boston, a city that's in quarantine. It's summer, and we've met Tess, and now we're meeting, for kind of the first time, aside from the neighbor, we're seeing the infected. We're seeing what life is like for survivors of the outbreak. We're seeing what Joel's experience is like walking by a group of people being checked if they're infected.
Get a life.
No, I'm not infected.
Hold her down.
This can's wrong.
Do it.
Please.
Trying to escape and being gunned down.
Holy shit.
And that does not seem to faze him. And I think that sets up a big event for the player, and it's Joel and Tess coming across a human being who has been infected by the spores.
Watch it. Help me. My mask broke. Don't leave me to turn. Please.
What do you want to do?
And Joel's action is to kill that person.
It's kind of what we do at Naughty Dog is we try as much as we can to like find this marriage between interactivity and storytelling. So we came up with this concept of like, okay, as part of their smuggling route, Joel and Tess actually have these underground tunnels that they use, and they go outside of the city through
Spores.
Spore-ridden areas where people that breathe in the spores could get infected. We get to see them wear a gas mask, except here they go into this path, this tunnel, and some of this debris has collapsed on another smuggler, has broken his mask, he's breathing the spores, and he knows he's going to turn. And when you get there, he pleads with you to shoot him. He doesn't want to turn into an infected.
Don't leave me to turn.
And there's a lot of telling you of like what people's mindset is like in this world.
Please.
And then we have the training comes up, and it tells you which buttons to push to aim your gun and pull the trigger.
What do you want to do?
And 9 out of 10 players do that. But we also have to account for players that don't do that just are fighting who Joel is at this moment.
What do you want to do?
So then we had Tess do it. So actually, if you don't kill the guy, Tess will do it for you. So either we establish that Joel does it or Tess does it, but they're both okay with just shooting someone and then moving on. This is just...
Well, this is where I say something about my character. I had no idea Tess would do it. I have played this game so many times.
Well, it's funny. We always have to account for like, okay, in gameplay, we want you to do this thing. What happens if you don't? So here's an opportunity to really put you into Joel's perspective. And so much of what we do with The Last of Us versus other games that, there's a lot of games that let you craft the morality of your character. You might have like a morality bar even to say, am I going to be good or evil? This is not that kind of game. We're saying Joel is a very specific character that takes very specific actions, and we're trying early on in the game to align you with him. So you're buying into what he's doing. You understand what he's doing. So that later, when he starts deviating maybe from your morality, you're on board already. So you're like, well, I wouldn't act this way, but I know Joel would. So I'm role playing as Joel. I'm on board for these actions.
And then we meet Marlene in this moment, and we're meeting the Fireflies for the first time.
Look, let's go find a firefly.
You won't have to look very far.
There you go. Queen Firefly.
In The Last of Us, we really tried not to have heroes and villains. To show everything is about perspective, and they operate within these quarantine zones and try to quote unquote liberate them. So from their perspective, they're freedom fighters. From the military perspective, they're terrorists. From Joel and Tess's perspective, they're just an opportunity. They don't align themselves with either side. They got their own side. And in chasing Robert, like Robert stole a shipment of weapons that Joel and Tess use as a bartering tool to survive in this world. And now Robert has given it to the Fireflies. So the Fireflies are, at this point for Joel and Tess, are just a means to an end.
You're looking so hot.
Where's Robert? I needed him alive.
The guns he gave you, they weren't his to sell. I want them back.
Doesn't work like that, Tess.
The hell it doesn't.
I paid for those guns. You want them back? You're gonna have to earn them.
And they see them, especially we see it more from Joel's perspective, he doesn't care for them. He doesn't care for this kind of idealistic
Gracias, Wiwi.
view of life. He doesn't think it's going to lead to anything useful. It's all about survival. So we run into Marlene that...
Genial. Tranqui, tranqui. Escuche tranqui.
has some knowledge of these black market smugglers with Joel and Tess, and she sees that they've killed Robert, who she was dealing with, and she needs to smuggle something out of this city.
You do that, I'll give you your guns back, and then some.
How do we know you got them?
Search the area. Yes, sir.
I gotta move. What's it gonna be?
I want to see those guns.
Follow me.
And I think if Joel knew what the cargo was, he wouldn't have taken this on.
We're smuggling her?
You know, she's 14 years old when we first meet her, and we instantly see how scrappy she is because in that first meeting, she goes after Joel for touching Marlene and tells him to get the fuck away from her. Get the fuck away from her.
Let her go.
And she's ready to fight if necessary. And that's the first meeting we have of her. And that's a bold start.
There's a crew of Fireflies that'll meet you at the Capitol building. You hand her off, come back, the weapons are yours. Double what Robert sold me.
Speaking of which, where are they?
Back in our camp.
We're not smuggling shit until I see them.
You'll follow me. You can verify the weapons. I can get patched up. But she's not crossing to that part of town. I want Joel to watch over her.
Whoa, I don't think that's the best
Ellie.
idea.
Him?
Look, just take her to the North Tunnel and wait for me there.
Jesus Christ.
Just cargo, Joel.
Don't take long. And you, stay close. Let's go.
I feel like the line is blurred between me and Ellie at this point because I feel like I am Ellie to a certain degree and she's me. And it's, I don't know. I'm obviously very possessive of this character as well.
Well, I think a lot of us are. I think players were able to relate to her because of the beautiful work you did in terms of creating this very real person. She's not a young ingenue. She's not a grizzled, hardened, tough gal, tank girl style character. She's very real and lived in, and I think it really draws people to her.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important, especially with female characters, to show all sides because that's what makes us special. Showing the vulnerability, showing moments when you're scared, showing the moments when you're strong. And you need that contrast because that's what makes what I think an interesting character.
Ellie's such an interesting person, or it was an interesting window into the story in that Joel straddles both worlds, right? He's lived in the world that we know, so he's almost like a way for the player, is the player's mindset, because the player knows the world we know, and then they get transported into this other reality, much like Joel did. But Ellie, on the other hand, doesn't know anything but the post-pandemic world, this post-apocalyptic world. In fact, she doesn't know anything except for this oppressive quarantine zone. So she's a tool for us to still find the innocence in this world, to find wonder in things that we take for granted. And then the whole concept of The Last of Us was a long journey where you're going to have these two characters of Ellie and Joel, where at first they don't like each other, let alone trust each other or anything else. They don't like each other. And by the end of it, they're going to love each other like the way a parent loves a child or a child loves their parent, and they're willing to do anything for each other.
I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about Ellie's... Joel becomes a surrogate father to her. Marlene was maybe a surrogate mother to her in some form or fashion before. I would love your thoughts on kind of what is a family to Ellie and what she looks for in a mother or father and what those roles are or could be.
Boy, you know, because I'm sure in this world she sees other kids with parents. And I think is a relationship that a lot of us, even if we have it or if we don't have it, we're looking for that because you want guidance, especially at that age. And I mean, with Marlene, their relationship in particular is a complicated one. But they care about each other deeply. And I do believe that Marlene, in many ways, was a parental figure for Ellie. And I think when she meets Joel, I feel like it's parental from the get-go. But if you went on that journey with anyone, there's no way you would not have a connection with them. I mean, as you kind of see her life in Left Behind, you see that life is hard, but she's resilient, she's tough, she's funny, it's all she knows. There's a new kind of isolation that she starts to carry with her because of the weight of being immune. And it's why she doesn't tell anybody. And she's different. And when you're a kid and you're different, you want to hide that because you stop being relatable. And especially something like an immunity to this thing that no one else seems to have, that's incredibly isolating. And there's a lot of weight to carry with that. And I mean, that's why at the end, why she says it can't be for nothing.
So we find out Ellie is infected. At this point, Joel is not on board. Ellie is definitely not his surrogate daughter. She's cargo. And now she's infected. She's a liability. And so I'm curious, Troy, if you could talk about portraying this moment and what it meant to Joel and how it set him up for the rest of his adventure.
I think that from the very, very moment Joel sees Ellie, and I don't know if this is, I've never thought about whether that was the first time for him to have that kind of close interactivity with a daughter that was Sarah's age. But it's such a visceral, there's no ambivalence about it, right? It is a clear, absolutely not. So from the very onset, he's connected to her. And it's even if it's there's a repulsion that happens as a pure defense mechanism for Joel. And that moment when they come out of the sewer and the soldiers kind of get them down and they do the ear test.
Don't do anything stupid.
Move.
Turn around, on your knees. When you scan him, I'll call it in.
¿Vas bien, Johan?
Oh, fuck. I thought we were just gonna hold him up or something.
Oh, shit. Look.
¿Cómo va ese miércoles?
Marlene set us up? Why the hell are we smuggling an infected girl?
I'm not infected.
No? Was this lying?
I can explain.
You better explain fast.
Look at this.
I don't care how you got infected.
It's 3 weeks old.
No, everyone turns within 2 days, so you stop bullshitting.
It's 3 weeks. I swear. Why would she set you up?
I ain't buying it.
More backpedaling. It's like now there's no version of this that ends positively. She is going to die, and she's going to die quickly. She's going
Me alegro, bro. Me alegro.
to die right now. And then it's the confusion of, like, she should have already turned.
To what extent was that Joel's only truth? That Ellie was the one? She was Neo. I need to get her to this place because she is the one?
Man, what a great question. I feel like the notion that you're positing is one of essentially it asks the question, does Joel have hope? And to believe in a Messiah, a Savior, the one, which we can get into that. Neo was not the one, but that's a whole separate podcast that I would love to have with you.
Is anyone listening? We're spinning up a second show.
Yes.
I'm on board.
I don't think Joel deals in those terms. He doesn't deal in terms of hope and even humanity. He deals in the currency of survival and need. So now we've let this girl in, and she's going to be a threat. And either I have to A, put her down, which I don't want to go through that again, or B, she's going to hurt us, and that I don't want to deal with. So it's not like, oh my gosh, now there's this possibility of this whole other world, and maybe we can pull out of this. I think Joel is waiting to die, but there's some stoic in him that says, while death is preferred, it's the flip of it. I will live. But no, I don't think he deals in terms of hope, much less redemption.
My name is Anthony Newman, and I was the melee combat designer on The Last of Us Part 1.
The game puts the player in a positions of extreme brutality, and I would say some of that is definitely from that melee combat, that up close, you see the pipe hitting the person, killing people up close and personal, killing humans, infected, the whole gamut. It's also so beautiful, whether it's Ellie seeing real fireflies for the first time, giraffes, nature reclaiming this world. I'd love to get your take on kind of balancing that brutality alongside beauty, the world that Joel and Ellie inhabit.
So at the studio, we're huge fans of Robert McKee and his works on like talking about story and narrative and stuff. And one of his points that I always loved was that what makes for really interesting characters is dimension. And essentially when he's talking about dimension, he's talking about contradiction. So, one that comes to mind is, Han Solo from Star Wars. On the one hand, he's selfish and in it for himself. On the other hand, when push comes to shove and like Luke is in trouble, he's out there rescuing him and stuff. So it's this internal contradiction between his selfishness and his selflessness that makes him kind of charming and interesting as a character. And I think that kind of thinking was underlying a lot of the decision making to make the world both brutal. So if everything was just super, super dour and a bummer, that's kind of not as rich of an experience. And, the fact that the game has both, a clicker ripping your throat out and Ellie telling you a joke from a joke book.
It doesn't matter how much you push the envelope, it'll still be stationary.
I think that makes for just a really rich and multifaceted experience. So I'm glad they approached the game with that in mind. So one thing that was pretty interesting about this is initially there were only clickers. Initially the only type of infected in the game were the fully mushroomed out clicker enemies. And in the original pitch for The Last of Us 1, infected were meant to be this kind of background radiation against a story that was really about human conflict. As things kind of developed, though, and we took a closer look at the story and the kind of scenarios that you were meant to be in, we realized there are actually quite a few infected encounters, and it's getting pretty boring to fight the same enemy over and over again. So it was actually remarkably late in production. I would say maybe 10 months before we shipped the game or something, 11 months, that Bruce split the infected into 4 classes.
Quick side note, Bruce Straley co-developed and directed the game with Neil.
So kind of in ascending order, there were runners, stalkers, clickers, and bloaters. So it's like kind of the power scaling of those enemies. There's some kind of interesting differences between all of them. To make the runners feel on the weak side, they had the same aspect that Ellie has in her melee, where when the runners hit you, they don't actually interrupt you. They kind of like, they make you flinch a little bit, but you can still keep punching. So if you're punching one and another one is hitting you, they just kind of like, they deal damage, but you can keep punching the one that you're damaging. And then there's a step up to stalkers.
Oh, fuck. Stalkers.
Stalkers were another thing that came on remarkably late. Their ambushing, their like hiding and peeking around corners thing, that was something that had been like pretty well developed. But their actual melee was something I remember this specific conversation with Bruce where like I forget exactly why, but they had no melee of their own. They just used the same runner abilities, and they're only in 2 encounters in the whole game, so they kind of were in this chopping block space of like almost not existing. And I remember it seriously had to be like 2 months or less before we shipped the game, and Bruce was like, we need these guys, we need melee, we need them to be unique in some way. The main aspect of stalkers that differentiates them from runners, other than the fact that they hide, is that they just have 1 step stronger of melee abilities where when they hit you, they do interrupt you. So if you get comboed down by a stalker, they can chain attacks on you, and you're kind of helpless while they're chaining those attacks on you. It's kind of this like, okay, just 1 notch above where the runners were at. And then the clicker is obviously kind of a big jump above that, even, where not only when they touch you do they interrupt you, they interrupt your life. They like just kill you instantly by kind of taking you down all at once. And then the
goddamn bloater.
Well, what?
Bloater is kind of like it does everything a clicker does and more, and has way more health and is way tankier. And it's the only infected with a ranged attack. So that was the kind of the thing that stepped it up even further, was the corrosive clouds that it threw at you.
Ellie, just stay away from it.
So at this point in the game, it's Ellie, Joel, and Tess, and they've made their way through the city to the Capitol building.
No.
And they find out that the group of fireflies they were looking for, they're all dead.
What happens now? Maybe they had a map or something to tell us where they were going.
How far are we gonna take
as
this?
As far as it needs to go. Where was this lab of theirs?
Oh, she never said. She only mentioned that it was someplace out west.
What are we doing here? This is not us.
What do you know about us? About me?
I know that you are smarter than this.
Really? Guess what? We're shitty people, Joel. It's been that way for a long time.
No, we are survivors.
This is our chance.
It is over, Tess! Let's just go home.
I'm not going anywhere. This is my last stop.
What?
Our luck had to run out sooner or later.
You going on?
No, don't! Don't touch me.
Holy shit. She's infected.
Joel.
Let me see. Oh, Christ.
Give me your arm. This was 3 weeks. I was bitten an hour ago, and it's already worse. This is fucking real, Joel. You've got to get this girl to Tommy's. He used to run with this crew. He'll know where to go.
No. That was your crusade. I am not doing that.
Yes, you are. Look. There's enough here that you have to feel some sort of obligation to me, so you get her to Tommy's. They're here.
Damn it.
I can buy you some time, but you have to run.
You want us to just leave you here?
Yes.
There is no way that...
I will not turn into one of those things. Come on. Make this easy for me.
I can find...
No, just go! Just fucking go.
Ellie.
I'm sorry.
sorry. I didn't mean for this.
Get a move on.
We talked about Sarah and Joel as a father, and now we're seeing Joel as a partner with Tess. And then Tess dies in a very heroic moment. She chooses to stay behind and keep fighting as Joel and Ellie press on. And it's been 20 years for Joel since the last major death, potentially, in his life. But it's been, 30, 45 minutes, an hour and a half for the player to now experience this other great loss for this character they're role-playing on. Why did Tess have to die? What does Tess's death mean in that moment?
So Tess's role in the story is we needed to put Joel in a place where he would never take on this mission. There's no, like, if Joel was alone and Marlene came up to him and says, you need to take this 14-year-old girl and travel across the country with her, he'd be like, go fuck yourself. There's no way in hell I'm taking this on. But instead, what we did is, like, we partnered Joel with Tess and said, Joel's not even the leader. Like, Tess is the leader. Joel is the muscle. They both on the surface appear like survivors. They're willing to do whatever they need to survive and have accepted their reality. But then we get to see, once Tess is with this kid, that there's something about, there's an opportunity for redemption here, that she actually recognizes that they're not good people. So then one of the things once they find out that Ellie is immune to the effects of the cordyceps fungus, at first they are reluctant to buy into it, but then Tess tells Joel, like, what if it's true? What if, like, delivering this girl is, like, the one good thing that we could do?
Really? Guess what? We're shitty people, Joel. It's been that way for a long time.
No, we are survivors.
This is our chance.
It is over, Tess! Now, we tried. Let's just go home.
I'm not going anywhere.
And he's trying to convince her out of this. It's like, it's not worth it. It's like, it's not going to happen. But she just calls the shots and we move forward to get to a point where gets bitten and she hides it at first. And then she gets to a point where she realizes, like, this is the end of the line. The only thing she could do to move this journey forward is to sacrifice herself before she turns into an infected and buy Joel time to take Ellie and escape from the military that has been chasing them. And the reason that is constructed in such a way so that she could have a dying wish. She could say, I'm going to be gone. I know you don't want to do this, but you need to do this. You need to go further. Like, we thought we were just taking them outside the city and the people were delivering them are already dead. But your brother would know where, like, the Fireflies are. He used to be part of them. Please, as my dying wish, if you ever felt anything from me, you will do this. And again, it's buying us more time for Joel and the player to get invested in Ellie. So that is the whole reason Tess is in the story, is to get to this point. And now Joel feels like, okay, well, I made this promise to someone I loved and had just sacrificed herself. I'll go just a little bit further. And in his mind, he's like, I'm just getting her to my brother and I'm done. And that's it. And I don't have to connect with her. I'm going to keep my distance. And of course, things don't go as Joel plans at any point throughout the story. But that is why Tess dies the way she dies. And she makes this dying wish for Joel.
Which is to transport this girl he sees as cargo.
I mean, if you go backwards a little bit, there's a moment where Joel and Ellie have to wait for Tess. Tess is going to go off with Marlene, and Joel has to just watch over Ellie for a few hours in this kind of hideout that Joel and Tess have. And Joel lies down to sleep, and Ellie comments on Joel's watch, and he just kind of blows her off.
Your watch is broken.
And then we see this moment where it's kind of this recurring theme where Joel wakes up from nightmares.
You mumble in your sleep.
And Ellie asks him about his dreams.
I hate bad dreams.
And then she starts telling him, like, they have this window where she could look outside and she sees the end of the quarantine zone. And she's like, I've never been this close to the outside. And he starts to see her as more than just cargo.
You know, I've never been this close to the outside. Look how dark it is. Can't be any worse out there.
And then after this moment where shows this moment of innocence. He asks her,
"What on earth do the Fireflies want with you?"
And we see that he didn't let that go. He's starting to care. So we kind of drop these hints. We foreshadow that despite everything he's saying consciously, on a subconscious level, there's something else happening. And then we see it after Tess dies and he escapes with Ellie from these infected tunnels, and they're alone for the first time and they can regroup. And Ellie's trying to apologize about what happened to Tess.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean for this.
Get a move on.
He shuts her down. He's like, okay, here are the rules. Like, you're just going to follow me. We're not going to talk about the past. We're not going to connect in any way. Like, he's trying to find ways to protect himself. And of course, Ellie is her own person. And even though she's says, sure, in this moment, I'm agreeing to your rules, none of it is going to go the way Joel wants it to go.
What do you think of Joel's choices so far?
I think the reason why Joel does this, it's out of obligation. And there's a level of pragmatism to Joel that says, what else are we going to do? The only option that I have, Tess, I think he knows Tess well enough to know is there's no talking her out of this. We are doing this. This is happening. And his experience and relationship with Tess is what allows him to do that. But I also think that there is some shred of him that says, I can't abandon. She may be a monster, but for right now, she's a little girl, and I can't abandon a little girl.
So things have changed quite a bit from how Ellie's day started. And I'm curious, Ashley, what you think of Ellie's choices of going off into this unknown with this person, with Joel, right? Who only a few hours ago was a complete stranger to her.
Well, I feel like if she trusts Marlene, and she does, she knows that Marlene trusts this person. And so all she can do in this moment she's trying to figure out what this all means. And if this person can help her with that, then she's going to go on the journey with this person. But I don't think she was prepared to care for this man as much as she does. And I think I love how Ellie is written. I think all of the choices she makes are so bold and brave. And I mean, I've said this before, I still feel so proud that I was able to play this character. But I think their relationship is so interesting and different. And yeah, I mean, I love the choices she makes. I think they're perfect for her.
You mentioned Ellie looking out the window outside the quarantine zone, and we have this nice moment where Ellie gets outside of it, and she sees... Fireflies, the actual insect.
I mean, real fireflies.
Yeah, I see that.
Sorry, I lost myself for a sec.
And we have this moment of story being conveyed through dialogue that isn't a cutscene, that the player, I believe, has to hear, but could kind of be doing something else in that moment.
Yeah, that's what makes our medium unique, is that you get to experience things yourself. So when we have, let's say, Joel and Ellie walk through a forest in the game for the first time, and you look at the artwork that Naughty Dog artists have done, and it's just beautiful. We can write dialogue that actually reflects Ellie seeing a forest for the first time. And she talks about, I've never been through the woods. I've only lived in a concrete quarantine zone. So you, as a player, you get to you appreciate the graphics of the game, and then you get to hear this girl comment about it, and you're like, oh right, that is kind of pretty, and then she'll constantly comment about seeing a bird for the fly for the first time, or seeing fireflies, and she's like, look, actual fireflies, something she probably only read about or seen in a picture of in some falling apart National Geographic magazine that maybe she got to look at. Joel is probably someone that has lost all appreciation for beauty and art and the good things this world has to offer. Everything for him is just about surviving another day. So in a way, as cliche as it sounds, it's like he's dead. Joel has died along with his daughter, and Ellie is now slowly bringing him back to life.
Troy, you mentioned Joel isn't a hope dealer. He's not one who deals in hope.
Right.
So if it's not hope, what is Joel fighting for?
Calling back to that moment, when that argument between Tess and Joel, and Tess is the one who says we are shitty people. It's been that way for a long time, and this is who we are. We do the dirty work. And Joel has convinced himself, no, we are survivors. This is what we do. I am sure that there's been multiple moments where Joel has loaded that gun with the pure intention of ending it all. I think that there is a silent contract that he has with Sarah that he would not allow himself to do that. I believe that he feels that there's no absolution in that. That's not the solution to the problem. So what is the solution? The solution is that I survive.
What do you think Ellie is fighting for?
I think she's fighting for meaning, of course. You know, like I said, I think having this thing happen to her, and with the loss that she's already experienced at this point, with losing her mother, losing Riley, you know, and like all of us, it's still trying to find the meaning in that. And also, you know, with spending time with the Fireflies of like, hey, maybe we can do something great. Maybe we can turn this around. And maybe I could be the key to that thing. I think she's really, truly just trying to find out why this thing happened to her and why she's the way that she is. And if she is, then maybe she can help other people.
And Neil, what would you say the characters are fighting for?
Joel is definitely fighting to protect himself, and the way to do that is to protect Ellie. Ellie, it's interesting. It's I don't know why my mind is like, I don't want to spoil where the story's going, but I guess this is the whole point of this conversation. Ellie is trying to justify everyone else's sacrifice. That's what she's trying to do throughout this whole story. She needs, we'll find out, like her best friend Riley died trying to save her. Tess now died trying to save her. We're about to meet other characters that aren't going to have good fates along the way. So she's trying to justify all these horrible things that's happening around her and the horrible things that she's going to do in finding this cure. That's why it means so much to her. Otherwise, she believes those deaths are on her. And why does she get to survive while people she cared for have died?
Next week on the official The Last of Us podcast.
I got you.
Damn it, Bill. Kid, I swear to God, if you took anything...
Hey, man, I don't need any of your shit. Trust me.
It's like Joel believes like you don't get attached to anyone, you live by yourself, and that's how you survive. And we get to see, okay, well, this is what that looks like.
Why are these all stuck together?
I think those moments are so important in the game because it is heavy. And we need to have those moments to just sort of all have sort of a collective sigh of relief to have a break for a moment.
The Last of Us podcast is produced by PlayStation and Spoke Media. It's hosted by me, Christian Spicer, and written by Brigham Mosley. Our Sony PlayStation team includes Charlie Yater, Christian Cardona, and Carrie Surtees. Our Naughty Dog team includes Arnie Meyer and Scott Lowe. Our production team is Carson McCain, Kelly Kolf, Trey Jones, Reyes Mendoza, and Alicia Force. This episode was mixed by Evan Arnett, who contributed additional sound design and music. Today's episode included interviews with Neil Druckmann, Troy Baker, Ashley Johnson, and Anthony Newman. Executive producers are Aliyah Tavakolian and Keith Reynolds.
Molto bene. Fin de verano parte 1, vamos con la parte 2. Iba a cortarlo acá, pero dije, bueno,
Have a good night.
sigamos un poquito más. Sigue
How's
siendo
that
el
you never
anfitrión el señor Christian Spicer.
Who says that I'm not?
What are you scared of?
Y siguen estando el señor Neil Druckmann, Troy Baker,
Let's see.
Ashley, pero ahora está también el director de arte
Being by myself.
Eric Pangilinan.
I'm scared of ending
No,
up alone.
Pangilinan.
What about
Dos
you?
nombres.
Those things out there. What if the people are still inside? What if they're trapped in there without any control of their body? Scared of that happening to me.
Okay. First of all, we're a team now. Okay, we're gonna help each other out. And second, they might still look like people, but that person is not in there anymore.
Henry says that they've moved on, that they're with their families, like in heaven. Do you think that's true?
I go back and forth. I mean, I'd like to believe it.
But you don't.
I guess not.
Yeah. Me neither.
This is the official The Last of Us podcast, and I'm your host, Christian Spicer. As we all await the release of Part 2, I'm revisiting The Last of Us Part 1 and talking with the visionaries and talents who made it. We'll be recapping the story while diving deep into the making of. If you haven't listened to Episode 1 yet, do that now, because we're walking through this story chronologically. And that means in today's episode, we'll be working our way through the rest of summer. And I'll be talking again with Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson, aka Joel and Ellie. And I'll also be talking with art director Eric Pangilinan and, of course, writer and creative director Neil Druckmann. Now, last we left off, Joel vowed to transport Ellie to the Fireflies after leaving behind his recently infected partner Tess. He and Ellie make their way out of Boston and into...
Jesus!
Whoa, man. What the hell was that?
That would be one of Bill's traps.
Your friend a bit paranoid, maybe?
That's putting it lightly.
What's the deal with this guy?
Well, he helped us smuggle stuff into the cities. He knows how to find things.
Well, let's hope we don't blow up trying to find him.
Ellie, come on, just... Oh, shit! God.
I got you.
Damn it, Bill!
What just happened?
Another one of Bill's stupid traps!
Cut that rope, and it'll bring me down.
On it.
Shit, here they come.
Just hang to the rope. Ellie, how's it looking?
I'm going as fast as I
Get off your ass on your...
We're meeting Bill, which as a player, I expect Bill to die. I expect to like Bill. I expect Bill to die. And I expect Joel and Ellie to be worse off because of it. Who is Bill to Joel? And then in that moment, who is Bill to Ellie coming into this from a new perspective?
You know, when we work on the story, we write everything on index cards and we outline it on this big corkboard. And
Hola, Carito, bienvenida. ¿Cómo andáis?
every section has a purpose. So one of the things we wanted to explore in this story is like, how are people surviving? The people that are kind of situated in a place What do they do to survive? We've seen so far the military, which is surviving by these very kind of oppressive means. It means people don't have freedom of movement. They might not have as much food as they want to, but they're mostly protected from the infect.
Bien, bien, bien. Gracias por preguntar. Estoy de chill hoy. Nada de juego. Simplemente escuchando el podcast y chusmeando el diseño artístico del juego. ¿Cómo vas a mitad de semana?
That's one version. And then we want to say, okay, what if someone could survive by themselves? So it does two things. One is it sets up, okay, here's another way to survive in this world. And what are the pros and cons of that? But the other thing is it reflects, it's almost like Bill's living, he's taken Joel's philosophy, or what Joel believes his philosophy is, to the nth degree. It's like Joel believes like you don't get attached to anyone.
That sort of shit's good for one thing. Getting you killed.
You live by yourself, and that's how you survive.
I realize it's got to be just me.
And we get to see, okay, well, this is what that looks like.
Bill, it ain't like that. It's
bullshit. It is just like that.
I definitely see almost every character that Joel meets throughout this, especially those that you meet, is you have to go through the thought experiment of, there before the grace of God go I. Like, you look at Bill and it's like, I could have gone crazy. I could have isolated myself and found a little, shitheel town that I could have just put up this barrier, and all that I have to worry about is protecting myself. Why did Joel choose to be a smuggler in a quarantine zone? Why did he choose to partner with Tess and do this? Why didn't he just isolate? But I definitely do look at that relationship with Bill, which is primarily, we know that Bill and Tess are kind of like that's the relationship, right? Joel is always kind of on the outside of that. He's the plus one. So that's why it's kind of a tenuous relationship when you see Bill. It's like, hey, I'm friend when they first meet, and the relationship between the two of them is contentious. It's like, you and I have commerce together, but we're not friends. It's almost like Bill is Joel's weed dealer. It's like, hey, we're cool, but this is the limit of our relationship. And to me, it was always a very interesting choice that Neil made in the script to when Bill brings up Tess.
How in the hell is Tess okay with this suicide mission?
It's actually her idea.
Really?
Yeah, this is right after Tess has died, and there's not that. Tess is dead, and I've thought about that moment a lot. And did Joel not tell Bill that because it was like, then you and I have nothing to do with each other? Because the only reason why Joel is in front of Bill is because he needs something. He needs a car.
Bill's like trying to say, like, why are you with this kid? Like, don't you like? And he kind of lays it out. Almost the themes of the game is like, don't you know what happens when you like rely on someone and like you're gonna get yourself killed? And Joel's like, it wasn't me, it was Tess. He's like,
well, the broad's not as smart as I thought she was.
And then Bill starts insulting Tess. No, just when Joel kind of stops him.
Bill, can we please just get on with it?
And then we wanted to show how Bill
ain't exactly the most stable of individuals.
Again, he just rambles to himself.
All the supplies from the warehouse are dug into the east
now he's
fence.
talking to himself.
Again.
When you don't have another person to communicate with, you start going a little crazy and your mind splits. Just so you could communicate with anyone, you start communicating with yourself. And we wanted to show that as you're walking around town, to say, okay, this is probably what this guy does when no one's around.
Can't believe you agreed to this bullshit. This shit's gonna
Bill?
Joel, this way.
He just is living this very kind of lonely, sad existence. And then so much of his character came from the actor that played him, W. Earl Brown, who was just phenomenal. I mean, I'm going to say that about every one of our cast members. But he really kind of brought this, there's just like this anger and this resentment and again, this really kind of pushing away people that really felt honest the way it came out of Earl's performance.
What, you know this guy or something?
Frank.
Who the hell's Frank?
He was my partner.
I think the idea of Bill having a partner, we're always trying to subvert expectation. Like, you think it's going to go this way, and if it went exactly how you predicted, it's going to get boring. So you think you're meeting Bill because Joel needs a car because he wants to get to his brother as quickly as possible to get rid of Ellie. and then we're going to subvert things by having a horde of infected in the school, and it's not going to go at all how these characters predict it's going to go. But another way to subvert expectations is to say, okay, Bill is this loner who pushes everybody away, and then find out he really cared about this person. And at first, I think we conceived of it as just like a surviving partner, his best friend. And as I was writing those scenes, it just, I don't know, sometimes things just come out of you, and it felt more interesting to say, okay, this partner is his lover as well. When we shoot these scenes, we first do a table read where we kind of get the actors to say the words for the first time, maybe improvise some changes, but really make them part of the storytelling process.
Every chance I get the opportunity to talk about specifically the character of Bill, I love bringing up the fact that W. Earl Brown, what he brought to that character specifically was he infused that character with the soul. Neil and Bruce did such a great job of giving it framework, and especially Neil writing the character. But one of the first moments that I remember seeing Neil's MO, which would be, I'm going to present you with something and I'm going to give you the opportunity to make it better or to flesh it out, was sitting at the table read for this one scene. And the scene is when we discover that Bill has a partner. And that was the specific word that was used. Just use the word partner. And Earl asked Neil, he goes, when you say partner, what are you stating? And Neil says, in his famous phrase now, what do you think? And Earl made the choice. He's like, if it's all right with you, I think it's interesting that in this world, this man found partnership, he found connection, and he found love in this person. And that's what it was. But that was a choice that Earl made purely as an actor, that Neil facilitated and supported that decision.
At the time, I didn't think about what representation could mean to other people in this instance. I don't know why I didn't think about, and maybe I should have. But since the game has come out and there was like just a nuanced gay relationship that people connected with and identified with, and they come and have expressed to me how much it meant to them to see it represented so honestly, or represented as well as we did it. It just kind of reinforced that feeling of seeing yourself in something you love, or seeing yourself in a movie, in a game, in a book. It's such a unique feeling that I can relate to on other levels, that it's just something that has become part of our process now to make sure that we're inclusive to tell better stories. It leads to better stories, and it leads to more people being able to connect to different layers of your stories than just kind of telling the same stories with the same kind of characters and the same kind of relationships.
Hey, look at that.
Let me use that. I'm a pretty good shot with that thing.
How about we just leave this kind of stuff to me?
Well, we could both be armed. Cover each other.
I don't think so. So we got shotguns and bombs. The hell are we doing with them?
Well, every few weeks this military caravan rides through town. I assume they're out looking for supplies. I mean, you'd be amazed at the shit that they overlook. Anyway, a few months back, they were rolling through and they get overrun by this horde of infected. They were all over the truck. It plows right in the side of the high school. Still sitting there with a battery in it.
So we take that battery and we put it in another car.
Bingo! I wanted to get it, but it seemed too dangerous with all the infected on that part of town. But fuck it.
Actually might work. Ellie, come on.
Look, there's a school.
All right.
Ready?
Guess we'll find out.
My name is Eric Pangilinan, and I'm the art director in Last of Us 1.
I'd love to start broadly for people who may not know. And for me, what is your role as art director?
So it's almost like a mix between a producer and an art director and an art manager, where I manage the entire project from start to finish, dealing with the creative director, the concept art, the animation, the camera guys, and the environment team, So I take care of the game from start to finish.
So how does the art and the art direction contribute to that feeling of like loneliness and just isolation in this world that has moved on from where we started, 20 years prior?
I think one of the goals we tried to do in the art was to contrast that, because the feeling and the situations we put the players in is very grim, very sad, very violent. And we want to contrast that with the environment being beautiful, open, bright.
How do you balance the beauty of nature with the destruction of what it represents? That here's this beautiful flower, per se, but it's not where a flower should be if society was as it was, 20 years prior. How do you balance that?
I think for us, we searched the internet, we look for references, and like in most images we saw, it was just overwhelming. It was just nature will take back everything, and for us, for the art director, it's more about balancing that so that it's visually appealing. We use that to our advantage in separating the values and separating what is nature and what is the environment so that it creates a good balance aesthetically to the world. It gives us opportunities to create natural formations with what was once man-made, like using bridges as pathways for water to go by. So you have all of these waterfalls cascading on top of each other, but instead of rocks, you have like the pancaked freeway. So it creates like this nice cascade down an environment. But when you look at it closely, you'll see like, hey, that's not rocks. That's not these terracing. It's actually a destroyed structure like the freeway that collapsed on top of each other and formed this nice waterfall.
One of the moments I'd really like to talk about, it's arguably the first, and I think certainly one of the few, it's the boss fight in the game, right? Like if boss fights even exist in the game, it's not like a health bar shows up and boss fight, comes on screen, but it's the encounter with the bloater. It's such an important moment in the game. And I'd love to hear how that moment and the gym were created.
What the fuck is that?
Goddamn bloater!
What?
Ellie, take cover.
I guess the bloater is an interesting part in the game, but I think I remember us being very against like making this feel like a game. We want you to be immersed in it as if you're in the world. So UI was a very careful balance in how much UI we're going to give the player so that it doesn't put them in like, oh, now you're in a combat space. Oh, now you're fighting this boss or something. So we were very careful not to take you out of that experience. And one of the things that we do in the environment, especially like man-made environments like the school, was to go very deep with the identity of the space. So we try to treat every space architecturally correct, and we try to study the interior designs of each of these structures so that we are designing it as if it's a real school, and then applying this environmental storytelling of like what happened to that place. Like, did it collapse? Did it get flooded? How did the dirt manage to get to this area, and what did it do to the materials like the floor, to the roof? How do you apply the infected into this area? Like, how do you show the pattern of the growth coming from a source? So the bloater is really like the pinnacle of the most dangerous part of the infection. And I think that's why this thing was treated like it was the boss, and it was presented in a way where you can see its maximum strength, like in this gym, and you were able to fight this with all your most powerful weapons.
And at least for me, I feel like it also represented, because it felt like a real space, almost a micro version of a hero's journey coming complete, where it's the realization of, for so many people, projecting my own feelings, but the school bully and that bullying happening in gym, right? Like, be it the tough gym teacher and she's yelling at you, or the kid who pushes you into the locker. And here's Joel, this man's man, you know, survived everything so far, taking on the bully in the school gym.
Yeah, I've never seen it that way, but yeah, that does make sense. And I guess that's why it's like the boss fight, right? Like you have to up that thing with the danger of the situation with something bigger. And I think for us, that was the solution. And it's something that, you know, if you were stuck with in an enclosed space, you'd be totally screwed. And so like getting introduced to the bloater in this big gym is actually great because it gets you prepared for the other situations, which would be a lot hairier than this.
Ellie, just stay away from it.
They destroy the bloater and make their way out of the high school. And they find Frank's body.
They see Frank's body when they're in the middle of a yelling match.
Bill?
Somebody had the same idea. They stole my shit.
Well, then what the hell is plan B?
You ought to be thankful you're still drawing breath. That was plan A, B, C, all the way to fucking Z. And furthermore, tell Tess that she could take this job.
Don't you bring Tess into this.
Shove it right up
nothing to do with...
And then they find this body.
Jesus. What, you know this guy or something?
Frank.
Who the hell's Frank?
He was my partner. He's the only idiot that would wear a shirt like that. He's got bites.
And then Bill revealed that Frank was his partner, and we see Joel, there's a moment of empathy. And Joel pauses, and he's like...
Reckon he didn't want to turn.
Yeah, I guess not.
He doesn't know what to say. Like, that was one of my favorite descriptors of Joel when we sent out the casting description, is he's inarticulate. He doesn't quite know how to express him because he's buried his feelings so much, and he's just not like a well-learned person. He doesn't quite know how to express his feeling, his thoughts, and he just kind of rambles in that moment. Like, that's a rough deal.
That's a tough deal.
And that's the best he could do to comfort someone he cares about. But we see this moment of like, he gets it. He gets that sadness. He gets that loss. And as much as he wants to bury those emotions, they bubble to the top.
When we get to that scene, and he says, you know, he's so clinical about it. He's like, yeah, it looks like you got bit here, here, and here. And he has this one moment of contemplative grief. And then it's back to Bill. He's like, you get rid of that girl as soon as you can. You know, this is the last time I'm ever going to see you because you're going to be a dead man.
We square.
We're square.
And get the fuck out of my town.
That's it. But it's a reminder, if nothing else, I think for Joel, Bill, that whole arc serves as a quasi-Faustian, this neo Jiminy Cricket going, remember, you get attached and it'll fuck you. Don't care about people. Remember, don't care about people. This is about getting this one thing and getting to the other side. Don't get emotional about this, Joel. That's what I think the purpose of Bill serves to Joel. It's a reminder of the atrocities of this world that we're in.
Oh, man.
Hey, what happened to sleeping?
Okay, I know it doesn't look like it, but this here is not a bad read. Only one problem. Right there. To be continued. I hate cliffhangers.
Where did you get that?
Back at Bill's. I mean, all this stuff was just lying there.
That scene, I think, was the first scene we ever wrote for that game. And it was used to cast Ellie and Joel. And it was just because we knew like there's so much like violence and intensity and drama in the story that we need to balance it with lighthearted moments. And that's why it was so important to get the kind of levity that's in the scene and the kind of chemistry that these characters needed to have in this scene. So in that instance, it was like, well, what would Ellie steal from Bill? And she steals all sorts of stuff. But I remember the comic book was just the first inkling we had that, oh, Ellie would be into comics and there would be such a rarity in the world that she would get excited every time she found a comic. And then that later turned into its own mechanic that as Joel, you can, as you're exploring, you could find these comics that then you gift Ellie. And it was another way systemically to build in their relationship.
And Neil, you've created real comics. You wrote real Last of Us comics. So did American Dreams already exist at this point? Were you teasing it? Or is it something that came to you later?
Yeah, no, when this scene was written, there was no thinking that, oh, there'll be an opportunity here to make a comic book with Faith Erin Hicks, someone I admire. I just love comics, and I've loved comics almost my entire life. That's where, like, I'm trying to think what a teenager would be into, that I just immediately gravitate towards that, which is comics. Again, I grew up in Israel when I was young, and at the time we didn't have, when I lived there were no comic book stores. So like one day my dad came back from the US and brought my older brother a Batman comic, and I was like 7 or 8, and I was just blown away by it. It just left such an impression on me. And then it was all about how do we get more of these things. And when we finally moved to the US, as a kid, I just collected like boxes and boxes of comics, and I could just devour them.
Well, better than nothing. Oh, I'm sure your friend will be missing this tonight. It's light on the reading, but it's got some interesting photos.
Now, Ellie, that ain't for kids.
Whoa! How the hell would he even walk around with that thing?
Get rid of that.
Well, hold your horses. I want to see what all the fuss is about. Oh, why are these all stuck together? I'm just fucking with you. Bye-bye, dude. I think those moments are so important in the game because it is heavy. And we need to have those moments to just sort of all have sort of a collective sigh of relief to have a break for a moment. And, you know, with the porn magazine, for instance, it's so funny because, you know, when we were talking about it, I don't think that I ever would have talked to my dad about a porn magazine, let alone talk about a porn magazine in that way. But that just shows how interesting Joel and Ellie's relationship is. And the whole joke where she asks why the pages are stuck together and he panics, but she's fucking with him. She knows. And it's so good because you think it's going to be a moment where Joel is panicking and he's like, oh man, I got to have the birds and the bees conversation with her. And she's like, nah, dude, I already know about all that shit. It's fine. It's just this beautiful sort of moment of him thinking, oh, I need to be a parent in this moment. And she's like, no, it's okay. I've raised myself to a certain degree. There's a lot of stuff that I already know, but we can joke about these things together because that's just what life is now. You know, we have, for us, it takes us a long time when we start forming a friendship or a relationship to really put our sense of humor out there because you don't know if your sense of humor is going to line up with somebody else's. If you say something, are they going to find that funny? Are they going to find it offensive? And sense of humor is such a big part of who we all are and the things that we find funny, which doesn't make any sense from one person to the next person. But I feel like being able to share that with someone is the biggest sign of comfortability. And the fact that they get to that place and they start joking around and having a fun time, it shows their closeness and how this time that they've spent together and this journey that they've gone on, they're getting closer and they care about each other and they're starting to enjoy each other's company. And that needs to happen. That needed to be there.
As we move through the game, the world becomes, or aspects of the world, there are still moments of levity, but aspects of the world become more brutal in terms of both the human enemies that we encounter and their ferocity, and also enemies like hunters.
Easy.
Please!
Holy shit.
Help!
Are we gonna help him?
Put your seatbelt on, Ellie.
Well, what about the guy?
He ain't even hurt.
And the approach to what Joel and Ellie have to fight and physically combat. Is there an analogy there to Joel and Ellie's moral compass also sliding, or is it just kind of the mechanics of gameplay that we need new enemies for our players to kind of deal with?
It's almost all those things. So we wanted to show there are multiple threats in this world. One is the infected, and it's almost like when you think of a natural disaster, there isn't someone strategizing how to use these infected to kill people. It's just nature is now killing us in large numbers. But then knowing when supplies get scarce and people get desperate, they can turn very primal and violent.
Get away from us, huh? We're back, motherfucker!
And we wanted to explore that both in the story and in gameplay. So, you know, when Ellie and Joel get to Pittsburgh, it's the first time. I guess there's a little bit in the opening in Boston, but we really don't really dive into it until you get to Pittsburgh, and we just see how violent and how desperate people have become, and how much and how tribal they've become. And anybody outside the tribe is seen almost no different as the infected. It's just someone you kill for survival. And it was an opportunity to show through dialogue that this is something Joel has done. So I remember, like, as we talk about these different parts, I remember in my head when they came online, and, you know, we started production of the game with Pittsburgh. That was like one of the first environments we've built, and worked our way out from there. And one of the first bits of in-game dialogue we recorded is Ellie asking Joel, like, how did you know those people on the outset were trying to ambush us? And him saying,
I've been on both sides.
Oh. So, you kill a lot of innocent people? We'll take that as a yes.
Take it however you want.
And it was just like, you know, it took a lot of time to get to that dialogue, but what I love about dialogue like that is it just all of a sudden your brain is filled with all sorts of backstory of like what this guy must have done to get to this place, and can he come back from that? It's like, it's just, so it kind of fills your mind about who he is, and then raises interesting questions about where this might go.
I think Joel looks at himself as a lone survivor. He's like, whatever you need from me, I'll do whatever you need. I'll do whatever I have to. I don't need a jacket. I don't need a badge. I don't need any kind of affiliation or fraternity, especially. And by the way, that's one of my people are like, what's your favorite line from the game? He was like, that's it. She's like, how did you know about that? And he goes, because I've been on both sides. All right. And it's said so offhand. It's just like, because, like, what do you want to know, girl? I'll tell you everything. I think that to recognize that play, to be able to, like a quarterback, look down the line and go, they just changed, and to throw that audible and be that you have been in that situation before, and you will not get caught looking again.
Oh shit. Come here, keep your head down. Right now, I'm gonna jump down there and I'm gonna clear us a path.
What about me?
You stay here.
This is so stupid. We'd have more of a fucking chance if you let me help.
I am. You seem to know your way around a gun. You reckon you can handle that?
Well, I sort of shot a rifle before, but it was at rats.
Rats?
With BBs.
Well, it's the same basic concept. Lift it up. You're going to lean right into that stock, because it is going to kick a hell of a lot more than any BB rifle.
Okay.
Go and pull the bolt back. Just tug it. Here you go. And as soon as you fire, you're going to want to get another round in there quick. Listen to me. If I get into trouble down there, you make every shot count. Yeah?
I got this.
All right. And just so we're clear about back there, it was either him or me.
You're welcome. I love that Joel doesn't let her shoot until that point because she is a kid. And that feels very real. And, you know, oftentimes in video games, it's just like, yeah, give everybody a gun and let's just like go shoot up some stuff. But it's so real. And, you know, if this happened today, there's no way that you would give your 14-year-old kid a gun on day one of an apocalypse. And I mean, at least I wouldn't. But that is such a huge turning point in the game and their relationship because it shows a massive amount of trust between them. And I think Ellie at that point already trusted Joel in terms of how capable he was and how safe she sort of felt with him to a certain degree. But it feels like the first time that Joel puts his trust in her and his life in her hands. And that lands with her. And their relationship is different after that. How can it not be?
Yeah, and I think that is the key moment because it's Ellie going from this, you know, we've seen it so many times in video games, this character that the protagonist needs to escort and protect everywhere, to later that role totally reverses.
When we sort of first started shooting the game, there was a lot of conversation. You know, I am a gamer. And as sort of your companion that you are carrying with you the whole time, sometimes it can feel like a burden. Sometimes, not every time. Of course, you fall in love with your companion character and you want to take care of them. But there are moments when you're playing and you're like, they keep like getting in the way and I keep having to go over here and save them. And obviously that's the game mechanics. But in sort of the discussions in when we first started shooting, there were a lot of conversations that we had and that I had with Neil where I was like, is there any way for her to be a little bit more capable or helpful? It's like, because I sometimes will get frustrated that like they don't have a weapon or they don't have anything to help and they're just standing there like, help me. I was like, I would love for Ellie to not be that. I know she's 14 and we have to keep that into consideration, but if there's some way where she could be more capable, I would love that.
How'd I do?
How about something a little more your size? It's for emergencies only.
Okay.
Well, we wanted to apply all this pressure on Joel and Ellie when they're in Pittsburgh and they're stuck in the city. And it seems like everywhere you turn, there's this antagonistic force of the hunters or the infected trying to kill you, that you could easily turn into the same mindset as the hunters and not trust anybody. And anyone you come across, you kill them first, ask questions later. And we see the difference between Joel and Ellie when they come across these two people with Henry and Sam. And Joel's instinct is to just kill them because Joel has seen too much go wrong. It's actually the kids in this scenario of Ellie and Sam that bring pause to everything.
Joel, stop! Look.
Leave him alone.
Easy, son. Just take it easy.
It's all right. They're not the bad guys. Lower the gun. Yeah, I thought you were one of them, too. Then I saw you. If you haven't noticed, they don't keep kids around. I'm Henry. This is Sam. I think I caught your name was Joel.
Ellie.
How many are with you?
They're all dead.
Hey, we don't know that.
We can help each other.
Ellie.
Safety in numbers and all that.
She's right. We could help each other.
So it became interesting from a dramatic standpoint to say, okay, now you're going to have to trust someone, a stranger. Can you do that? Is it okay to do that in this world? And they take a chance on them. And now that we have these two kids where, again, you've been in just this nothing but survival mode. Ellie has just shot a person for the first time. She's lost some of her innocence. So she's in a different mindset. But now when we bring Sam in and someone her age, we get to see them kind of joking. And Henry even comments on that.
Wow.
All right, ready?
Ow.
A blueberry hurt you?
It's been a while since that boy even cracked a smile. She doesn't seem bothered by all this.
So it was an opportunity that we jumped on to explore the innocence of kids, even in horrific settings. And you read about this quite a lot, where people have to find levity, no matter what the situation is. And it happens in Holocaust. It happened in like even in some horrible situations in our world. You find stories of how people have found ways to keep themselves human.
So Joel and Ellie are going with Henry and Sam. They're on their way to the radio tower, which is outside of town, and they're going to find the rest of their group. But at the gates, they're attacked by the Humvee. Henry and Sam just take off. They don't even wait for Joel and Ellie. And so Joel and Ellie have to run to the bridge, where Ellie just jumps into the water, even though she can't swim. Joel is forced to jump in after her, and the current is super strong. Thankfully, both are rescued by
Henry! He's awake!
Hey, you. We're alive. Okay.
See? What'd I tell you, huh? He's good. Everything's fine. You know, Sam's the one who spotted you. You guys are taking quite a bit of water. What's wrong?
Henry! Get back, son!
Hey. He's pissed, but he's not gonna do anything.
You sure about that?
Stop!
Joel?
He left us to die out there.
Ah, le actualizaron el paquete de idioma. ¿Qué pasa? Estoy en modo English hoy. Bienvenido, Sinky. ¿Todo tranqui? Yo estoy de chill acá, un poquito acostadito, relajado. Voy a comer algo y me voy para el dentista. ¿Vos cómo andás? ¿Todo tranqui?
No, you had a good chance of making it, and you did. But coming back for you meant putting him at risk. If it was the other way around, would you have come back for us? I saved you.
He saved me too. We would have drowned.
You know, for what it's worth, I'm really glad we spotted you. Now, that radio tower, it's on the other side of this cliff, okay? Place is going...
Nada, en realidad fui el otro día y fui de meter el lance porque acá cerca de casa hay uno, pero nunca había chequeado bien el horario. Igual, supuestamente fui bien, y después me aclararon que fue una cosa rara de que ayer y anteayer estaban cerrados, no sé por qué. Hoy le preguntaré de chusma. Pero hoy sí toca.
Gonna be full of supplies. You're gonna be really happy you didn't kill me.
When you were making this moment, Neil, were you a father yet? Because this is a brother relationship, but it hit me as one of the strongest parent-child relationships in the game.
I mean, as I'm trying to recollect the timeline, I definitely my daughter would have already been born. I'm sure subconsciously there was a lot happening there, but you're right in that it is a brother relationship, but it's more of a paternal relationship. And again, it's as we're talking about this, I'm just seeing this through line of this theme of like protecting your kid versus giving them freedom to express themselves, to find who they are, to make mistakes. And we see that in the toy shop.
Sam, what are you doing?
Nothing.
Get rid of it.
My backpack is practically empty.
What's the rule about taking stuff?
It weighs like nothing.
The rule. What is it?
We only take what we have to.
That's right. Now, come on.
So there's some truth to that, but it's also missing this other point of like kids need that escape. They need this other thing. So it's like, and that's why Ellie steals it and then gives it to Sam, which is just very kind of sweet gesture. But that's one of those things that just felt very true to me and felt like it had to get in the game. So all these, in some ways, Tess, in a lot of ways, Bill, in the most ways, Henry and Sam, when we go forward, these are all cautionary tales for Joel. So with Tess, it's like, okay, here's what's happened when you get idealistic and she believes she's going to save mankind, you're going to end up dead. With Bill, okay, well, here's what happens when you're just about survival and about like limiting your freedom, and it's not about having fun or living. He drove his partner away. And later when you find this suicide note, like it's all laid out there, and it was like Frank was not happy with Bill and he wanted to escape, and Bill just is like, well, we survive in this town, that's all we need. And it's like that wasn't enough for Frank. So that's a cautionary tale for Joel. Like, if you're just about survival, if you're just about keeping your emotions at bay, you're going to drive everyone else away. You're going to end up alone and miserable. And then later with Henry and Sam, there's like kind of the ultimate thing that Joel is afraid of, which is losing the person you love.
There's a piece of concept art that was one of the first, and if anybody has the collector's art book of The Last of Us, it's the kind of sepia-toned sketch. It's a picture of Joel and Ellie at a campsite, at a fire, and they're laughing. And I carried that picture with me every day to set, because to me, that was always the moment that we were trying to get to. Just the moment of levity, the moment of light. And the closest that we got was the scene with the beans.
Justo se refiere a esta imagen.
Serious. It was Tommy's birthday, and that's all he wanted to do is just rent 2 Harleys and drive cross country.
Oh, man. I could die happy if I could just ride one around the block. What was it like?
And we get to see for the first time Joel kind of being a bit nostalgic and wistful, and having this moment of recollection of a fond memory.
It was good. It was real good.
Good? Can you believe this guy? Come on, man, give me details. Describe it.
You know what? You two deserve a little privacy.
No, Ellie. This isn't just any regular motorcycle, okay? You get on that bad boy, you feel that engine? Nothing like it.
Oh, yeah? How would you know?
Seen it in my dreams.
Okay. That's what we want. And that's what we need. We, at the end of the day, just need a basic human connection. And I think that's something that is very important to Ellie, because you don't have all of this external stuff. You know, she doesn't have going to the movies or staying at home playing video games or, you know, going out to the park and playing a game of soccer. It's all you have, and all she has is connections with people. And I think if you're someone who has dealt with loss, you realize how important that is. You know, and I think that's one of the main reasons why she gets connected with the Fireflies, because the Fireflies are simply trying to save humanity and save that connection. And I think it still goes back to her still trying to find meaning to all of that. Well, it's safe to say those two have officially bonded.
Did Henry send you?
No. Why would Henry send me?
To make sure I'm not fucking up somehow.
I'd say we all did pretty good back there. Especially you. Is everything all right?
Yeah, everything's fine.
Okay. Well, have a good night.
How is it that you're never scared?
Who says that I'm not?
What are you scared of?
Let's see. Scorpions are pretty creepy. Being by myself. I'm scared of ending up alone. What about you?
Those things out there. What if the people are still inside? What if they're trapped in there without any control of their body? Scared of that happening to me.
Okay. First of all, we're a team now. Okay, we're gonna help each other out. And second, they might still look like people, but that person is not in there anymore.
Henry says that they've moved on, that they're with their families, like in heaven. Do you think that's true?
I go back and forth. I mean, I'd like to believe it.
But you don't.
I guess not.
Yeah. Me neither.
All right. I'm pooped. I'll see you tomorrow.
right. We did it.
We should move.
No. Sam! Sam, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. You sure? I said I'm fine.
Come on!
Let's move!
Damn. That smells good.
Good morning.
Where's Sam? Sam? Sam!
What the hell? Shit, he's turning! That's my fucking brother! Screw it!
Shit!
Chloe? Elliot, you all right?
Oh my god.
Sam?
Oh no.
Sam?
Henry? Henry, stay there. Henry?
What have you done?
I'm gonna get that gun from you, okay? Oh, okay, easy.
This is your fault.
This is nobody's fault, Henry.
It's all your fault!
Henry! Henry, no!
Oh my god.
Next week on the official The Last of Us podcast.
Jackson County. Means we're close to Jackson City, right?
Should be more than a few miles.
You ready to see dear old brother?
I'm just ready to get there.
You nervous?
I don't know what I'm feeling.
I believe that it's one of the most important moments in their relationship because they both, to some degree, are opening up about some heavy stuff. And granted, it's a bit of a heated exchange, but they're getting stuff out. They're both trying to figure out how much they actually do care about each other.
The official Last of Us podcast is produced by PlayStation and Spoke Media, is hosted by me, Christian Spicer, and written by Brigham Mosley. Our Sony PlayStation team includes Charlie Yater, Christian Cardona, and Carrie Surtees. Our Naughty Dog team includes Arnie Meyer and Scott Lowe. Our production team is Carson McCain, Kelly Kolf, Trey Jones, Reyes Mendoza, and Alicia Force. This episode was mixed by Evan Arnett, who contributed additional sound design and music. Today's episode included interviews with Neil Druckmann, Troy Baker, Ashley Johnson, and Eric Panyolinen. Executive producers are Aaliyah Tavakolian and Keith Reynolds. Thanks for listening.
Molto bene. Fue la primera parte de 2 del podcast. Los voy a mandar con el señor... ¿Se me fue el nombre? Billy está jugando al Subnautica, un juego que voy a probar algún día. Me interesa. Hoy estuve de chill nomás, gracias a los que se pasaron a chusmear. Quien quiera verlo subtitulados porque no sabe inglés, después lo voy a subir a YouTube y le activan el subtítulo automático y ahí les va a generar el subtítulo, porque creo que esto no está en ningún lado subtitulado. Pero al subirlo después a YouTube, supongo que así van a tener subtítulos. Si es que quieren chusmear el detrás de escena. Nos vemos, Shinky. Que tengan una linda tarde. Y nos vemos prontis. Adiós. Besito, chau.